situation, like with what happened here over the past week, in Charlottesville with the white supremacists, the Nazis, the KKK, that group, and with protesting, I think it's important to make a stand. Like when I was younger, when I was learning about slavery or the Holocaust or even early America, and I was always so convinced that I would never be silent or just let that happen when it came along. So I do think protesting is important, but only to rouse like a force in America and say, this is wrong and we'll not put up with it. But when it comes to, these are Americans too, and when it comes to protesting, that's not a conversation, and that is not progress, and it's not, holding a bunch of signs that say, you're wrong, doesn't teach, and it only puts them on the offensive. They don't look at us, when we're protesting and say, oh yeah, that's a really good point, we should think about that. I think, and in the media it's the same way. Like, you look at all of this mess, not just with Trump, but the whole idiocracy, and it's so easy to look at that for most of us and say, this is not right, he is lying, here's the evidence of that, and just like, Nazis are bad, really bad. The KKK should not still be happening. Like, as humans, you would think, especially with the technology today, like, we have access to so much of human history where we can say, okay, look, this is what happened when this kind of rhetoric was made political and normalized, and these were the consequences. And I think, especially with the white supremacists, that, here in Charlottesville is not the only place. Like, this is running rampant now, and I think the biggest problem, especially with the media, is they're not asking questions. They are just agreeing with the rest of us that it's bad, but I have not seen anyone ask them the question, okay, so if your plan was seen through, what is your solution? What do you want to happen to the millions of Americans that aren't white? And when they talk about white pride, a lot of times their argument is, oh, well, you're not offended when African Americans say that they have pride in their heritage and their culture. But it's different, because they're not just talking about their ancestors before America, like wherever their lineage comes from, Ireland or Scotland or Germany or wherever. They are specifically talking about white American history, and that begins with a genocide and the theft of an entire nation, and then it moves to, like, you say little stuff, but all of this extremely anti-women, like burning witches at the stake and not allowing women equal rights, and then you go to enslaving an entire race of people. And now these same people who are the white supremacists, white nationalists, I'd say we, but it's people who I would think are sane, it's easy for us to stand up and chant and hold up posters saying, you know, their argument is baseless and tragic and pathetic, but no one is actually asking this question of, what is your solution? You know, like, what is their plan for their argument? Do they, and if we look at what they're proud of, what do we see? We see genocide and enslavement. And we're talking now about non-white American citizens. And they can talk about how they don't want them, but we on the other side, we're not asking them what that means. So is there a solution to kill them? To take away their citizenship and deport them, and if so, to where? Or is it to, enslave them? And that, it twists my mind up so much, because you would think at this point in humanity, we have seen this happen, we know the consequences, and now, like I said, it's so easy to look at and say, this is bad, and scream at these people, you are wrong. But how do we get through this? And why is it happening? And I do think that Trump has a hand in this, and not only with his lack of response to this. You've seen him he doesn't have a filter. He is deemed he's deemed the FBI and the CIA Nazi and using Nazi tactics. And he's definitely not shy when it comes to calling, so-called Muslim extremists terrorists, and even to the point of banning Muslims, which is totally un-American. But I think his biggest role in this now is, if you look at his consistency during the campaign and his presidency, where he conflates freedom of speech with truth. And when people disagree with him, just like now when they're disagreeing and protesting against white supremacists, their first rebuttal is, oh, you're attacking my freedom of speech, and it doesn't matter whether or not, it doesn't matter whether or not you're free to say something. That's embedded. But even if you're free to say something, it doesn't mean that it's true. And this struggle that the majority of us have had with Trump, and now with these offshoots of the KKK and Nazis and white supremacists, is that they make these claims, but they don't have anything to back it up. So they either go with, oh, I'm the victim, you're attacking me, you're trying to take away my rights, or they will just, chant like ad hominem attacks and personal digs until you are so riled up that you either resort to violence or you give up and just shake your hands at this mess, because you're like, it's not worth my time. But either way, they are no longer, they're no longer pushed to actually give reasons. Same thing with Trump, same thing with what's happening now. And the biggest evidence of that is neither, Trump nor, these domestic terrorists, the white supremacists, Nazis, KKK, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's no, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's like they feel like they're not responsible to back up their claims. not just with reasons behind them, but with like plans for the future. And right now, like with what happened over the past week here, you know, I didn't go to the main rally, and I sort of regret that. Not because I wanted to get in a fight with anybody, but just because, you know, if there's news cameras, you get in front of them, you can ask questions that nobody else is answering. Like, what is your intention here? What do you want to do with this argument that you're making? And it starts out with people like Jason Kessler, who, from what I've seen, he wants to be special. He wants fame or attention, and he doesn't actually have anything to offer the world. Like, you know, he's not skilled, he doesn't have any talents, he doesn't have anything to offer other than being white. So he resorts to this argument, especially if he, you know, has felt, I guess, alone or forgotten. And this one argument of white supremacy means that he is special and superior without having to work for it. It's the same thing with Trump, and I think that's what has emboldened all of these people to lead with hate. And when you have a leader, you know, a president that is saying fire and fury like the world has never seen, you're thinking, all right, we've seen genocide, slavery, nuclear bombings. What have we not seen? Not seen world peace. Shouldn't that be what we're actually working towards? But when you have a government filled with people who don't believe that their job is working for us, then they're beyond reproach. And when you have people so deluded that they think that their sort of like emotional thoughts or conspiracy theories or whatever completely baseless, but they believe that that's more important than the leaders of those fields. You know, like with science and the environment, you've got Trump calling it a, you know, hoax by the Chinese. He doesn't have any knowledge in that field. When did we replace information and theory and discussion and debate with like this, you know, declaration of I am the best, I'm better than all the rest, I don't have to have qualifications because, you know, I won? And it's dangerous. I mean, right now I think the world is, they kind of realize, like most of Americans, well, I hope that, and I hope that they also realize that most of Americans are in the same boat, where we understand that Trump is a fool and his intentions are solely about promoting himself, and his beliefs are based on his ego, and they're giving us a break. They're giving America a break on Trump. But sooner or later, Trump's actions are going to damage the world, just like with, you know, with education and the environment. Like, those are things that a certain amount of damage will be so far beyond the pale that we are not going to be able to come back from. It's not just about, you know, Trump's like non-understanding of how fragile diplomacy is, but when you start talking about education and environment and, you know, removing regulations for clean water, and you end up with so much damage, it's not just an easy fix. This is stuff we're not going to be able to come back from, if ever, for generations. So how do we move past this? Everyone is so angry and so caught up in their own, you know, their own like cause and beliefs that nobody is even remembering to ask the right questions. And for Trump and for this disgusting movement of white supremacists, we've got to ask them, what are your intentions? Because if they want to kill, enslave, or deport American citizens, it's gone way past free speech, and this is threatening the lives of millions. And that makes them criminals. Not just asshats and idiots. It makes them terrorists. Just feel so ashamed that how could we get to a point of progress that's beyond ever before and then go so far backwards? You know, when I've spoken to people sort of on the other side, like when I was downtown a couple of weeks or months ago, and Jason Kessler had invited the Proud Boys down there, and before I even said like a word, Jason and a couple of other Proud Boys were just like chanting at me, screaming in my face, "Evil cunt, bitch," over and over and over again. My first question was, what is your intention down here? They couldn't answer it. I don't know why people want to make this world so ugly. Like, shouldn't the purpose of life be to make the world even just a minuscule amount more beautiful than it was when we got here? And there is so much ugliness. Is it just based on ignorance and assumptions? Is it like it's so frustrating. Is there a solve? Like, is there a way to move past this? Is there a way to progress without taking it to like a civil war and, loved ones blocking each other out of their lives just because of pride or ego? Or how do we peacefully get through this? I think the first step is our president is a failure and he's not fit for office. And not just the president, but all government officials need to remember that they work for us, not just their party, not just their base. And it's not just about America. And it's not just about America making money. This is the world. I hope we can all be better, but in the meantime, this is how I feel. Hopefully it's worth 1,000 words.